All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Brief break. We're going to kick things off in a minute. We've got Kurt and Farshad here on video, I see.
Hello.
Hello,
Hey,
everyone.
guys.
Hello, world. Are you out there?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. Well, again, thanks to our sponsors, Forward Security being one of them. So appreciate it. You guys made the today possible. I'd like to kind of briefly introduce our speakers before I hand it on over to them. So you have today Farshad Abasi and Kurt Hundek. Farshad is actually one of our organizers of the conference and leader of the Vancouver chapter. So he's helped make today possible in more ways than one. So thanks, Farshad. So for both of these guys, they're Forward Security. So Farshad here is the founder and chief security officer, and Kurt is a security consultant. Together, they bring more than a couple of decades of experience in security, software design, architecture, and management. So today, they're going to talk to us about two OWASP projects, the ASVS and the SKF, and how we can have a more secure SDLC because of them. So nice. I'm not going to keep talking. I'm going to hand it on over to them. So thanks, guys. Take it away.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for coming to our talk. It's really great to be here. It's really great to be part of Forward Security. The title of our talk is Building More Secure Apps, Harnessing the Power of OWASP, SKF, and ASVS on Kubernetes. And as was mentioned, I'm Kurt Hundek, and fortunately to be joined here with Farshad Abasi. So
hey everyone.
Yeah, it was alluded to, wasn't it, that we have a couple of decades between us. I guess we're getting old, hey? The graybeards, I guess. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of up on the screen there. Farshad, why don't you say a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
Like how did you end up in the security mess?
Oh man, I don't want to go there. That'll be a whole
I know. Yeah, I know.
You know, I just summarize. I started as a software developer, built lots of different software systems, and built a lot of networks as well. Yeah. Did that for about half of my career. And then I switched over to security. I think it was 2008, doing that full time. I mean, it wasn't that I wasn't doing security as part of my development or previous jobs, but it became a full-time gig back in 2008, and I haven't looked back. Completely happy about the choice, and I'm hoping to convince others to jump the fence and come over. And just a plug, if you are a software developer and you're interested in security, talk to us. We love mentoring, and I know Andrew spoke about mentorship at the beginning in this keynote. I think mentorship is quite important. We have a program for software developers who'd like to come and do software security. So talk to us. But yeah, I spent about a decade as a senior member of HSBC Global's IT security team, led their application security program, architecture and all that wonderful stuff. And I've been leading the OWASP Vancouver chapter since 2016, and it's been fantastic to see it grow and to the point that we have this conference. And of course, there's a bunch of designations we can skip over. So Kurt,
right on. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and it is a pleasure to work with you, Farshad. You bring tons of experience to the table, a huge diversity of knowledge as well, which is awesome. My background is basically 20 years of being a software developer guy. I did the computer science degree thing, and got really heavy into the trenches. Worked at a large Canadian financial institution. And started, kind of switched over from being a developer onto the security team, and actually really starting to mature their security program, focused on vulnerability management, but also with application security always on mind. So I've been to a lot of different conferences. It's really cool to be out to this conference. Maybe next year I can be there in person, but I love to go to different places and continuously learning. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of that experience with you today. So let's get into it. Now you guys know a little bit about us. We don't know about you out there yet, but maybe we can find out.
Let's see a show of hands. Who's heard of SKF, Security Knowledge Framework? Put up the thumb if you can.
Can you guys do that? Can somebody do a quick count? Can somebody help us?
I think they can. Let's see here.
Yeah, I've got, let's see, one so far, me.
One person's heard of SKF. That's good. That's good.
Oops.
Any others? Talk to us. Have you heard of SKF?
Yeah, SKF. It's okay if you have it. You don't have to Google it. You can just be like thumbs up or thumbs down. Thumbs down can be you don't know it, not that you don't like it. Just you don't know it.
One X means don't know. Oh, there's another hand up. There's 3 that know.
Yeah.
Okay.
No problem. Awesome.
What about our good friend ASVS? Let's see a show of hands of who knows of ASVS. Let's see. So there's more people. Oh yeah, I see the numbers go up. Andrew mentioned ASVS as well in his keynote and its importance. And we're going to talk about that. It seems like, well, there's like, 6, 7 people that know ASVS. Oh, there's the numbers going up. That's great.
4 participants raised hands.
Awesome.
Nice. I see it. I see the count.
Okay.
Nice. Thank you,
Lots
everyone.
more people
Thank
know
you.
about ASVS. That's great. So
Yeah,
our
that's
job
good.
today is going to be to tell you about SKF, because it seems like less people know about it. And that's exactly why we're all here.
Yeah. Nice. What about Kubernetes? Are folks using Kubernetes? Is that a word that you guys have heard? I feel like a lot of people are talking about it now. There's been some service announcements around Amazon recently around improvements and stuff. I'm curious if folks are using Kubernetes. Some people write it K8S. I don't know. That's kind of
K8S. That's right.
K8S. Yeah. Anybody using Kubernetes out there? You can thumbs crying eyes. You must be. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, that's great. Thanks for giving us a little bit of background, because we're going to be talking, like Farshad said, we're going to be doing focus on SKF, ASV, and Kubernetes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, are you aware you can use ASVS as your application security requirements, right? A lot of companies that are requirements focused, they often don't know, the team doesn't know where to get security requirements. So ASVS can be used at that, or, for architecture as well. There's lots of really good guidance. For sure. And maybe we'll show a little bit about it more. We're going to talk lots about it.
Yeah, for sure. And do you know what the OWASP SKF is? Like it's I'm going to give it away because we asked. It's literally software. It's a software package that you can install and make available to your developers, learners, anyone in your organization to learn more about security requirements and to address your training needs. So yeah. I wonder if anybody else is there curious about what it takes to deploy a containerized application like SKF into Kubernetes. So, like containerized Docker stuff, if you're curious about how to get those Docker things into Kubernetes, that's what you're going to see today as well, because we released some code to do that. So
yeah, we're going to show you basically how to combine all these great tools together to help your team build more secure applications in this presentation.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the takeaways, right? Kind of, say a little bit more about the takeaways.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, basically what we want to do is by the end of this presentation, we want to make sure that you walk away and you understand why and how to use SKF and ASVS together. And why would you even want to do it? How to get it up and running on AWS, Kubernetes on AWS. That was a challenge we tackled, and we'll share our findings with you. So hopefully in a way that's useful to you, and it'll make your life easier when you want to go down that journey. And then finally, we want to make sure that you walk away and understand how to harness the power of ASVS and SKF to make more secure applications. So I think it's a great tool, and it's just not known enough. And I think once you know about it now, hopefully you go away from here and get your teams to use it or use it yourself. And the audience that we're targeting this to are software developers who want to write more secure software right now. And of course, security practitioners, they want to help the software development teams and build training programs. This is an excellent training tool, and we'll see why. And IT ops and DevOps folks who want to know more about Kubernetes and how to deploy SKF into that platform.
Nice.
Yeah.
So understanding why and how to use the OWASP ASVS SKF. So that's one of our learning objectives here.
Let's do it.
I feel like you're the SVS expert. You've really. I feel like you were in on it early and kind of. It's a cornerstone to what we do.
I suffered from the lack of a proper security. So at HSBC, we had lots of security standards. Like we were actually pretty good in terms of maturity, but we didn't have an application security specific standard. Like we had other standards for how to encrypt data and how to do access control and general broadly speaking standards that a lot of enterprises have. Mm-hmm. But then it was like, oh, what about AppSec? Like when software developers are making software, what are their specific requirements? So then they assigned me, of course, to go and create an AppSec standard, and that's not an easy thing. So I engaged a few of our colleagues. We created a whole working group and we tackled that. And it was just a lot of work. And of course, maintenance, like people left the company, no one maintained it. In these large organizations, they keep changing hands. Well, enter ASVS, right? They've done a great job gathering all those requirements for your applications to build application security and to test them. And in fact, I believe it started more as a testing framework, because it's called the verification standard. So it was designed for people to go and use it to verify applications. But it can be used by developers to build the requirements that'll later be tested, right? Similar to how you do test-driven design, you develop the test cases and you build to satisfy those test cases. It's a similar idea from a security perspective. So it can be used as in terms of metrics. And what do we mean by that? It can help the developers and the owners to measure the degree of trust that they can put into the application, right? And in simple, like what I mean by that is ASVS has 3 levels, level 1, 2, and 3. If you have implemented the requirements for level 1 and you've passed them after a test has been done, then you can go and say, hey, this application is a level 3 ASVS application. And that has a certain meaning, right? Because in the ASVS guide itself, it says that, you know, if you have a lot of sensitive information, doing large value transactions, or you're handling, say, patient medical data, you're level 3. Right. And then if you're, so for example, but if you're level 1, you're just a basic application. In fact, Government of Canada says that any application that's plugged into the internet should comply at the minimum with level 1. So level 1 is the lowest assurance. If someone says my application is at level 1, you're like, okay, well, that's low assurance. Hopefully this is not an application that is handling sensitive data. So it could be used as that metric, but it could also be used as guidance. Guidance for what? Guidance for developers to build security controls in order to satisfy the application security requirements, right? Remember my HSBC example, our teams were like, hey, I want security requirements, you know, what are they? And we had to build our own standard or use something like ASVS and then contribute to the community as a community. And that's what we chose, that forward security. When we started this company, I figured, you know, it's great to build that into the DNA of our company. So everything that we do is around ASVS, and of course contributing to it, right? So one of our colleagues is now a major contributor to ASVS, and you know, I've had a number of conversations with Jim about it. Jim Manico, great guy. You know, you should, any of you that are going to use that standard, it's a great idea to contribute back to it if there's something that's missing, or there are areas for improvement. They're always open to it. You can put it on in their Git. And of course, finally, you can use it during procurement. And what does that mean? Well, a lot of companies, when they're shopping for application security, if they're not using ASVS, it's a difficult conversation because they're going to a vendor saying, hey, can you test the application? The vendor says, sure, we can test it. Well, what criteria are they using? Are they testing? What test cases are they using? Are they getting comprehensive coverage, right? There's no, again, measuring stick for procurement. So if this, by using ASVS, you can go to the vendor, say, hey, you know, do you use ASVS? If so, what level can you test this on? And then you can take that, then it makes the vendor selection a lot easier. But then when the results come back, if you fix those results, then you can go to your clients and say, we've adhered to this level of ASVS. And you can also use that as a way to, as a guidance to improve your application. There's a link there, but you can find it also on the OWASP website. And right now it's going through a major restructuring. Release 5 is coming out. I don't know when, but soon apparently. And yeah, I highly encourage all of you to check it out.
Nice. Yeah, this is the website. You know exactly what Farshad said. This is the Git repo. They are branched off onto a version 5 as well, which is their lead, and it's moving quickly. I think there's an opportunity to make a contribution here. So that's this is where it's at. Yeah, and so what's SKF? That's the I guess that's the other part of the conversation. We know now what ASVS is. It's the requirements part, and it's where it kind of fits in. And we thought maybe we'd just do a quick 30-second view of what is SKF. I mentioned it was software. Okay, so if you went to the demo securityknowledgeframework.org site right now, this is an installation of SKF. And in the installation of SKF, you have a couple of different areas across the top. Projects. This is on the internet, so there's lots of stuff in here. But there's projects. And projects would be kind of well, we're just going to leave projects. Code examples.
We'll come back to projects.
Yeah, we'll come back to projects. Code examples are different languages and different examples of how to fix common problems that you might do. They're for developers. Checklists. The checklist is the ASVS right now, and I think it's going to change some of the wording and how it evolves. But effectively, inside of checklists, each one of these maps to the ASVS, and we're gonna show a little bit more about that. The knowledge base, this isn't code examples, but these are more like words and descriptions and kind of maybe design and architecture thoughts around various topics. So there's a knowledge base component.
And we're going to dig into that later on with a couple of specific examples. So you'll see, we'll follow the end-to-end journey with a couple of ASVS items so you can see in more detail what that looks like.
100%. And labs. And again, this is outside. This is all that comes out of the box, right? So this is just kind of what you get. And Farshad, isn't this exciting? I don't know if you've noticed, but if you see on screen, they have training now.
That's right. You told me about this.
I know. And this is new, and this is coming. So there's this whole new journey around training that they're building in, and around different types of journeys that you can have. So this is the essence of the software. Once it's installed, you have access to these default things, and we're gonna show more about SKF as we go. So, oops.
Yeah, and in summary, basically, as Kurt was mentioning, it has the following features. It can allow you to have checklists. We can take the full ASVS set and then use it. You can use a
Decompose
subset of
it,
it as a
yeah.
checklist, exactly, decompose it, and then take a subset that applies to your environment, your application, and then you can, the developers can leverage that checklist to build secure applications. But it also has really nice code examples in multiple languages, as Kurt mentioned. And then there's a knowledge base that you can use to further disseminate knowledge across your developers. The labs are my favorite piece because oftentimes people are looking for, an actual vulnerable application, but it doesn't, there are things like Juice Shop, Damn Vulnerable Application, Web App, Go. There's lots of these projects, but they don't map very clearly into ASVS. So it's kind of difficult. Like the Juice Shop will say, like, I have these examples that you solve, and it tells you, hey, this is a cross-site example, that kind of stuff, but it doesn't map directly to ASVS. This is really useful this way, because if you're using ASVS as part of your SDLC, you can say, well, these are my requirements, and then whichever requirement you fail, you can get the developers to go and play those specific labs that focus on those requirements, which is really usuful. And I see a question here. We might as well take some of the questions.
Oh, do you see questions? Okay, I can't see them.
It says, would you recommend using ASVS for threat modeling? What would you adjust to cover everything you need in threat modeling? So ASVS is a set of controls, right? And in threat modeling is a process where you determine the different pathways of attack. So, what we usually do is we do the threat model, and then we look and see which of those ASVS items that the applications failed on, and see whether we can combine them to come up with a particular threat scenario. So oftentimes we start by doing that high level threat modeling, we figure out what is possible, then we go and do an ASVS assessment, and then we figure out what they failed and passed on. And then we take the failures and we link them up to see if it'll fit into the threat model that we came up with, or to see if there's a new threat scenario that we hadn't thought of when we did that initial upfront threat modeling.
Yeah. And if you're threat modeling, maybe you're in the design phase of something, maybe you're early on into it, and there's a whole set of ASVS requirements that kind of talk about design and some things that you should be thinking about early on. So
absolutely.
Some things to think about there. Were there other questions? I can't tell.
I think that's it for now.
Okay. I wanted to just, throw out there that SKF, it's under active development right now. And I was really lucky to actually talk to the lead developer, Glenn, this week. We had about an hour-long conversation. I was explaining to him kind of my journey into SKF and what's happening. And he kind of rallied back with a bunch of really interesting things that are happening, and left me with the sentiment that this project is very much alive and looking for valuable contributions. And the contributions that are needed are kind of like stitching the data together, as we're going to see, like kind of maybe this exact code example ties to this exact ASVS, ties to this exact requirement. Like, so it's an exciting project, and I hope you're leaving with that feeling as we show more about it.
All right. So why did we do this? Why did Kurt and I roll up our sleeves to try to get this up and running? Why are we doing this? Well, there were challenges to getting the environment running. And I remember, this all stemmed from, I think it was a few months ago that I said, hey, Kurt, we need to train one of our clients. And I'd heard of SKF. I played with the online version that they have on their website. Yeah. There's a demo that you can play with. It looked pretty reasonable, but it wasn't very stable. I mean, the one that they have online, it's not so stable. It's recommended that you stand up your own environment and then use that, right? So, I said to Kurt, hey, let's stand up our environment and use this to train our clients. And then we went down this rabbit path that it wasn't so straightforward. I'll let you take it from there, Kurt.
Yeah, good. That's a great summary.
It was not coming up. We have a poll coming up before we.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you'll know. You can probably take a function of my pain. Just we asked who knew about Kubernetes. Is anybody else running Kubernetes? Is anybody running Kubernetes? Who's using Kubernetes? I know. Yeah. Can we get the thumbs up if you're still out there?
Who's
thumbs up or thumbs up? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
3 people. You're right. 4. Cool. 5.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
So I wonder,
awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. And how many? I wonder. So a lot of people are using Kubernetes because it provides a lot of value. Some people are using the managed Azure Kubernetes. Some people are using the managed AWS Kubernetes EKS. What we're going to show today is not that. We're going to show raw Kubernetes. Who's using Docker? Are there developers here? Or if you're a developer, just say you're using Docker. That's what I'm going to assume.
Even non-developer, the whole world is using Docker true. These days, right? Like,
no, it's been revolutionary.
Instead of running Docker somewhere.
I love Docker as a security practitioner. All your tools are good to go. You just get your image and it's there. You know what I mean? Like
conflicting libraries, no nightmares. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Are people using it? Yeah, probably. Hey, and so this talk's really geared towards AWS. This isn't like a cloud poll, but are folks using AWS out there? How many people are using AWS on the call? It's okay.
AWS,
a few people.
2 AWS. Usually, in our experience, a majority of companies that are in the cloud seem to be in AWS, followed by Azure and then GCP.
Yeah.
third. It seems to be the statistic, but
yeah, that seems to be what I've noticed as well. Okay, so that gives me a sense. That gives me a sense. So, you know, maybe for some of you folks out there, there's kind of two different paths onto this SKF the journey that we've been on and preparing. So, tell
them what they can find at that link, Kurt.
Yeah, exactly. So at this link here is our code release, and inside of the repo. I almost feel like, should I go there just for a sec?
Why not?
Let's just go there. Which one are you? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Yeah. So this is the repo, and just make sure it's up to date here. Yeah. Basically, you can see down here. There's a little image, a little GIF that's running, and it's kind of showing how to get this thing up and going. So I'll let you watch that image, but effectively, it's just a series of basically 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4. It's a script that when you execute it from beginning to end, you'll end up with the 2 Kubernetes clusters that you need to execute SKF on the internet, ready to go. And when you're done with it, you can tear the whole thing down. It uses COPS. And speaking with the developer Glenn yesterday, he tipped his hat to me a little bit because he was able to get it working in GCP and Azure, but it's been a little bit tricky to get SKF working inside of AWS. So we have the solution. This is the solution. But just from the poll there though, like maybe not everybody wants to go and do the whole there's infrastructure inside of AWS to stand up the virtual nodes and all that stuff. Maybe that's too much for you. I also made what I'm calling the Minikube style, and this effectively uses Minikube, which is like Kubernetes, Kubernetes is a program that you run on your system. You don't need to go any further than that. You just fire up your Minikube, and this is a way to kind of do local development and a way to get it up kind of pretty quick and easy. So I have a little script there that kind of talks into
asking how hard is it to work in EKS?
I haven't done the EKS way. It's totally possible to do it. There's a bit of a payment premium, right, for the control plane and a few other things. What I like about doing it natively, like we've done it here, like at the end of this process, you end up with a VPC, you end up with your EC2 instances and the security groups and everything, and it builds itself out nice, right? Like this, and you can like SSH into your nodes, and and you can also like run it on the cheap. You can use you can do some different configurations because it's with COPS. So I'm not saying EKS isn't a great solution, and for sure, but if you want to start like at the very bottom, like bare bones, this is like raw Kubernetes. This is like, well, I mean, I'm using COPS, but it's raw Kubernetes at the end of the day.
Yeah, another question. Any reason we chose Minikube for local environment instead of Docker Compose?
Yes. The specific reason is, and I'll address that. Maybe it's on the next slide. Yeah, I'll just fast forward here. Yeah, it has to do with versioning at the end of the day. Just in case you guys, maybe Farshad, would you like throw that link in the chat there, just in case people want to grab the code or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be awesome. Versioning. Right now, my Docker environment, because I'm a good little security practitioner, is completely up to date, and I think it's running Kubernetes 1.2.4, 1.2.3. And right now, SKF is kind of it can't work in Kubernetes versions larger than 1.2.2 specifically. There's a lot of numbers I'm throwing around here, but Kubernetes after version 1.2.2, they changed the way that they're doing network ingress stuff. I don't, if you're familiar with Kubernetes, they had V1 like beta ingress, and now it's like, I think it's called V2 perhaps, but that's everything moving forward is, all Kubernetes moving forward from version, after 1.2.2, is using the new ingress, and SKF has code that creates version 1 beta stuff. So that's why I'm running Minikube, because I can tightly control the version. I don't know if you saw in here, I'm able to say, and maybe I can learn something. Maybe there's a way to do this too with Docker, if you have a clue for me. But with Minikube, you can pin it to a version. So I pinned it to 1.18.20 there, which I know for sure works with what's currently head. So hopefully that sheds some insight. No judgments in your question. I completely understand why you'd want to know. Yeah, so the code is made up of COPS, Terraform, and AWS. That's what you're going to get, like I was saying. So it's native stuff. And I mentioned that the SKF is tied to that version, so we'll pass on through that. And Patience. That's the bottom line. If you're doing anything with Kubernetes, at the end of the day, you need to have patience, because it takes time to bring these things up, and they synchronize in their cluster, and they achieve consistency and stuff. So it's probably going to work. Just wait a little longer. Just wait a little longer. So yeah, unless of course there's a AWS, there's a small AWS outage, which you're not aware of. Okay, so how do we? Yeah, should we talk a little bit about? Getting like, so
put it all together.
Yeah, we kind of talked ASVS. I kind of we dropped the code. I kind of went on a little bit about its structure and stuff. And now it's like, okay, so like hypothetically, if you took the code and you ran it and you had this SKF thing up and running, like, you know, what would you? Yeah, you want to talk a use case through?
Sure. I mean, let's take this imaginary company, Acme Corp, right? Let's say they have, you know, they've delivered several iterations of their highly successful online shopping site, and they have a team that's 3 people, and they're going to be probably hiring another 7 by the end of the year. So it's going to be up to 10. They have you know, their dev team. They know that it's important to be secure, but they don't know how to get there. And they want to build, they want to start building security requirements into their development practices and other formal controls as well into their pipelines. And so they're kind of like wondering what to do. So they come to us, and then what do we say to them? Well, we say, you should use ASVS and SKF, right? And you know, that is the solution, because SKF is a nice platform that allows the development team to achieve all the things they want to do, from, you know, having their requirements and turning it into a checklist, to teaching their developers using the code examples, as we mentioned, and of course, getting them trained up on the specific items using the labs. You know, what as I mentioned, one of the things I really like is that if you get an assessment done and you see that that you failed on a certain number of ASVS items, those are usually the areas that your development team is weak on, and that's where you should be focusing. There are other platforms, you know, not to be named. There's lots of commercial testing platforms that when they do a similar thing. When they fail, they'll take those failed items and then they refer you to certain training exercises. You know, this would be the similar idea. Like at the moment, it doesn't have the training component built out, but so you would have to do that manually. But in the near future, as Kurt mentioned, there are training components coming to this that'll even create training journeys that'll allow you to create training journeys for your developers. Yeah,
which I think is good. It's going to be great. I really feel like this project is kind of up and coming and about to arc a little bit. So let's jump into yes. Let's just jump into it. Yeah, exactly. Everyone say knock on wood. Okay, live demo time. Okay, so here we are connected to our SKF demo cluster, which I've stood up using the scripts that I provided in the repo just about an hour ago, just to live dangerous. And probably what we want to talk about is about a specific flaw. I don't think we mentioned it yet. I just kind of jumped over here, but what we want to talk about is the open redirect flaw. And it's kind of a very low hanging fruit, easy conversation to have. And yeah, very basic. And we're just going to start here and, you know, just to kind of demonstrate, you know, kind of how it ties together. So the scenario might be, you know, it's come to your company's attention that, you know, inside of your application, there seems to be, you know, some spammers are abusing your service. You know, your URL is appearing in spam, and people are ending up at your site, but ending up somewhere else. And nobody, you know, this is how it's being described to you. And, you know, your security team realizes like, oh, okay, it sounds like somebody's abusing an open redirect inside of our application. So a common tool. Yeah.
So either discovered, it could have been discovered by an external tester or your own team, but you have that problem. So we're going to figure out how to use this to go and get your developer trained up. So yeah, we start by finding that first in the checklist. And as Kurt's showing you, there's ASVS 5.15 that says, verify that URL redirects and forwards only allow whitelisted destinations or show a warning when redirecting to potentially untrusted content, right? Those of you who've seen ASVS, that you've seen this one before, but not only that, you can dig into it more. So if you click read more, it gives you a lot more context and they aggregate some information. So they give you a better description, they give you specific mitigations, and they actually break those mitigations into different phases. So like, what do you do during implementation? What can you do during architecture? What can you do during design? And what can you do during operations, right? So they cover the full spectrum of, you know, dev all the way to ops and all the things you can do to prevent this type of an attack. So it's a nice description, but you know, it may not be enough for the developer to really get a grasp of it, right? And that's why they have the code examples and the labs and all that Kurt will show you.
Totally. You know, like that little blurb at the beginning, I was like, oh, they tell you something about a site. Imagine it was just like, hey, check out ASVS 5.15. You've got a problem in your app, you know, and like a developer could like literally read this and be like, instead kind of start to dig and like, I'm a developer. I can start to read this stuff and be like, okay. Maybe there's a code example. Okay. So maybe the developer digs in here and they read this thing and they read this stuff, and, you know, developers think in code though, right? So like maybe there's a code example. So the idea with SKF would be like, you know, for everything in a checklist, you know, maybe there's a code example on how you can do it. So here's some examples, you know, a couple different languages around it. Yeah, you know, maybe you're a Java shop, for example. Yeah, I mean, it ties together. Like this one actually refers to also the whitelisting one, but you can get the gist of it just by jumping into it. But so as a developer, it's like, okay, opens a forward. You know, I'm going to start reading this code right away. This concept of a whitelist or an allow list. It looks like it's constructing this list of places that are allowed, and this redirect looks like the place they're trying to go, and, you know, it's going to return whether or not it's validated, true or false kind of concept. So I can kind of see how, like, if the redirect isn't in this list, then it's not valid is kind of what it's doing here. It's like, okay, so there's some code, there's some validation I need to do around it. So
it gives good example in the comments too. It gives good descriptions of what's going on. So it's all, you know, for someone that's like the first time, or even people that have done it before, they can come and read this and get a good understanding of what's going on. And it provides, and the different languages too. Maybe Kurt, we can show like the
sure,
ASP
totally, or even I was thinking maybe where's the Node.js one. A lot of folks are maybe doing Node.js stuff here too. Pretty popular. Where are we? Yeah. Oh, this one's having a bit of a rendering issue. I can see with a little bit of a bug here, but this is how it's going to be with a few things here and there. This also, I think there's a huge opportunity as well. I still think like there could be better code examples. You could contribute a code example. Like you could review these code examples and make them better.
Exactly.
You know, so
it's like, it's either this and go build your own platform, right? Or go pay for a really expensive commercial one. You know, this has its shortcomings, but that's, you know, the community can roll up their sleeves and contribute to examples, make them better. We highly encourage that.
Exactly. So so, you know, depending on what shop and what you're doing, you can get a couple different languages going. Maybe you can contribute one that's better. In general, this is where the code examples live, and you can review them. But so you found it. They're kind of starting to understand what the open redirect problem is,
but it still hasn't stuck to them because they've only read about it so far, right?
So theoretical.
So I know for me, I'm one of those people that I like reading, but until I get my hands dirty, I don't learn as well. So that's where the labs come in. So now you can not only have you read it, it's a really nice flow, because you first go to the checklist, you see the ASVS item, and then it's got the expanded description that this project gathers and provides. So now you've kind of got a good overview from an understanding perspective. Then you see the code. So now you've seen, if you're a programmer, which you are hopefully using this for, and then, you know, you see that code example, it makes it stick more, and then it gives you the opportunity to actually try it out. So Kurt, if you want to
exactly. Should we try one out? Let's see.
Sure,
so, you know, open redirect, right? And this is kind of, so this is kind of, I love this part of this project, because when I click start over here, what's actually going to happen is there's going to be a communication between our two Kubernetes clusters. Our demo site is going to ask our lab site through RabbitMQ. It'll say, hey, can you spin up lab open redirect for me? And then our other Kubernetes lab cluster will say, let me go get that Docker image. Let me deploy it for you. Let me install an ingress for you. And here's the details back. And it sends it back to the demo site here. So we're back at the demo site, and it's received this URL, which is redirecting to the lab site. You can see here. So I'll just go ahead and go to this guy. And here we are inside of our live demo. So let me just kind of, so this is the demo that goes along with what they're calling unvalidated URL redirections. And this page is kind of trying to present some content that says, sorry, this is the old web page, which would maybe make this, but like, you know, maybe this should say something different. You know, maybe it should be like, you know, click the button to go somewhere, right? That's what it should say. It should say, click the button to go somewhere, because that's what they want you to do here. Basically, you're going to click this button to go somewhere. So what happens when I click this button? Okay. welcome to the new website. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. So if I click back, I'm back here. So this is the old website. Welcome to the new website. So somewhere in here, there's some sort of vulnerability related to open redirects, right? So I'm just going to give a slightly different view here. Let's take a look at the network. So it's and a clue, and there's also a clue on screen here. Craft a URL that leverages the flaw present in the navigation logic. Okay, so there's some navigation logic. This is the navigation component, right? This is navigating me somewhere, right? So I just right clicked and turned on my inspect. This is a great tool, pretty much in all the browsers now. I remember a time when it wasn't. And, I just went over to the network tab and I just kind of loaded this page up, cleared this up, and I just loaded this page up. And these are all the things that happened. So I'm going to click on this button. Actually, I'm going to clear it one more time. I'm going to click on this button. Okay. And you can see when I clicked on the button, the first thing that happened is it went to this redirect question mark, new URL equals / new site, right? And you can see that the response from the server there was a 302 found, and then said, go here, go to the new site. So there's some redirection logic here. Let's just copy this link address. Okay, so let's just let that fly. Okay, so looks like even though I typed in something different, I ended up at this new site area, which is great. So what can we do? Like any good little hackers, we'll just start changing stuff. I don't know, old site, some site, something, I don't know. Okay, so that's usually gold, right? That's anytime you see an error, you're like, oh yes, we're getting closer. We're getting closer to the prize. So that's interesting. What if, instead of that, what if we just go for the old, what if we just go for gold? Okay, there it was. There it was. That was the open redirect. That was me creating a URL. I could go. All right. And this is now the attacker's open redirect URL. This is me. Now I can send out an email to people, kind of leveraging the reputation of this website. And when they go there, they're actually going to end up being redirected to wherever the attacker sends them to. So hopefully that's resonating with some folks out there. So that's kind of the dip your toe into the pool for open redirect. I don't know.
I think it has different levels, right? There were like 3 different labs.
Totally, exactly. So that was
like,
kind of,
that was too easy. It's like, hey, look, and you can see it says there hard and harder, right?
Yeah.
It's got so if you're like, hey, that was an easy one, well then go for the the hard one or the harder one. I think now you just jumped into the hardest one, but we can
I think it actually goes if you see the level too. I know it's confusing because harder and hard, you think that maybe
that's right. I forgot.
I know. It's confusing though. So we'll get this guy going here. And we'll just go to this guy, tidy up as we go here. Looks very similar to just the previous one, but I suspect there's something different. So we will go to the new website. And just like last time, it looks like it's very similar. So, hey, I wonder, can I just do the same thing? I don't know. Oh, invalid, unvalidated URL redirection. So
make it a little bit harder.
Yeah, they've done something to make it harder. So, and like it's a little bit tragic, but they've told me right here exactly what the problem is. It's like, normally you probably wouldn't do this in a server backend, right? Like if somebody served up some garbage, you wouldn't tell them how it failed the regex or something. But this is saying, hey, you can't actually use a period in here. So it's what it didn't like about my redirection was the idea that I've got this period in here. So the question is, like what are there any techniques that I know of that could help me bypass, this type of input filter? And like, obviously I do know the answer because I've done this lab. But I want to just maybe, without just saying the answer just right now, in case you're on the seat of your pants, just point out the fact that there's write-ups for each of these labs here. So if you do want to dig, if you get stuck, if you don't know what the next step is, you can go ahead and you can open these write-ups here, and they kind of give you like, okay, well, what language are you working in? And you kind of can pick your language, and it'll even show you here how to pull the lab locally. So you don't have to do some of these lab, like specifically this lab, you can just run locally with Python, and it kind of talks you through
what the Kubernetes is doing, is just making that easy, right? Because technically, these are all available as Docker images you could go run. But then, when you're using Kubernetes behind the scenes and using the SKF framework, it just makes all that magic.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's also why this is why it's an opportunistic project, because you could start creating Docker images for things that you want to demonstrate to your clients. You can deploy them into this environment. You could show them.
And in fact, you remember I mentioned Juice Shop, everybody earlier. So we've in fact linked that in here as well. So there's nothing holding you back from launching any container. It doesn't have to be just the labs here. So if you do want a full-fledged, vulnerable application like Juice Shop that has everything, you can launch it from here, but it just won't map directly. There won't be a direct mapping of the vulnerabilities in Juice Shop to SKF, because that's just not been done.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I'll just show people on screen here I won't necessarily get it fired up here, but we can do it at the end if we have time there. But we'll do that at the end. The Juice Shop here, if that should be on our list of projects. I don't know, maybe we'll add it, because things that we're actually talking about, like Juice Shop is an awesome OWASP project that you guys should all be familiar with. And it's really cool that you can get SKF running, and then just literally just by clicking that button, it'll fire up the whole entire Juice Shop Dockerized environment for you, good to go. So you can, you get even more value there. You get all the SKF labs that are in existence, plus the stuff that's already created. So that's super hype. But just getting back to the actual exploitation of that lab, again, you can read through it, and it talks you through the steps that we're going through. And then the last chapter here, exploitation. So, that's the spoiler alert. This really cool thing called double encoding, which we can learn more about. I believe the OWASP might even talk about it here, but it might not. My bad for clicking, but the bottom line is this is the solution here. So it's learning about double encoding. And if I just take this URL, I'll just throw it in just to show you that this is the bypass. We're actually, everybody's cringing because they're like, last one. Okay, over here. Okay, so that one technically didn't have a period inside of it. So because it didn't have a period inside of it, it was successful. And what this lab is trying to demonstrate is that if you're trying to come up with a list of rules that aren't allowed, so you're saying, hey, no periods allowed, and then the next lab you're going to see is no forward slashes allowed. If you're trying to build this no allowed, yeah, it's like stop. We got to flip the thinking on it. That's where we're getting to the allow list, right? So after you do these, that's kind of where you go.
Yeah, allow list is way better than the deny list approach.
Yeah, it's
you never know. It's like you were saying, right? It's a constant battle. You have to catch up with all the things that are denied and new things that are found all the time, and adding them to your deny list. It's just you might as well admit defeat.
Exactly.
Allow lists are better, but also sometimes it can be hard, particularly with input validation. And I don't mean to digress, but I know a lot of the developers that I've worked with, it's like, well, Farshad, it's great. You guys, security guys say to use allow lists for input validation sanitization, but on my, a lot of my fields on my screen need to allow every character, particularly when I worked in international environments, they, a name, like in some countries, Unicode. They need every code allowed in there. And so it's or like a free form comment box, they want, it's like they need to allow everything to be typed in there. So it's sort of like, then you kind of do a compromise. You go, okay, well, maybe we use deny lists, but again, not the best way of doing it.
Yeah, this is where the layers of control kind of come in. Because if you know right away, okay, I cannot get to control or to trusted input. If you can't get to trusted input, it's like, okay, you're tainted, as we used to say in the pro world. Yes. You're heading down one path of logic. Never to be trusted. Go over here. So you have to deal with it differently than if you can assume otherwise. And all I did while we were just chatting there is I just started the Juice Shop just to kind of demonstrate here that, once once you do get it up and going, you will be, again, into our, this is all inside of the Kubernetes. This again is all has to do with getting set up. Yeah, I won't dig too far into it. Or should I just remind you guys of one like the principle we were just saying there was like untrusted input, right? So
oh yeah,
let's just like jam some, like, I don't know. Sometimes when I go to site, I'm like, quote, single, like sites that I'm supposed to be testing, quote, single quote, brackets, like what's garbage? What do you guys, like what's not good? I just try to get it all in there, like very super naive, kind of fuzz, right? And then just like see what happens. And it's like, oh, hey, look, I got rewarded with a flag, just from entering some garbage input that had some single quotes in here. Okay. So, that's kind of one of the lessons or one of the outcomes. The very first thing that you learn kind of, I feel like as a developer, is that, you don't trust input, untrusted input. So that's what's going on here. So you can see, I'll get rid of this flag here. Did it actually see up here? It says object, like that's not supposed to be there. That's part of your error message. Something's going on here. I don't think I'm going to dig into the first lab for Juice Shop on our talk here. I don't think necessarily. But what's really great, all I really wanted to demonstrate was that, using the code that we released here, if you get SKF up and going, you're going to have access to all those SKF labs, and then you're going to have access to the Juice Shop as well, which has a whole ton of stuff behind it, which is, again, like another talk on its own for sure. So, that's a big part of why we built this, was to get people into SKF. And I really do think putting inside of Kubernetes is kind of the best bet. Maybe should we flip back here for a second? Should we talk a little bit about our takeaways too? And I didn't get a chance to update it from my conversation with Glenn earlier this week, just about, my number one takeaway about SKF, and I've already kind of said it to you guys, that this project is very much alive and has a lot of room for contributions. So, yeah, that's one of my big takeaways. Do we want to talk about a few others?
I mean, yeah, like in general, you should use ASVS as security requirements to build and test your applications, right? And then, of course, not just for the team itself, also for third parties that are going to test your application. It's good that everyone's aligned. And if that's done that way, when the third party tests it, they can come back to you, say, these are the ones you failed in. If you're using ASVS as requirements, it's easy to tie it all together. And of course, you're bringing the training in through SKF, which can help you really get a lot more out of ASVS, right? If you're just using it in the way it is, like right now, you can download it in different shapes and forms from GitHub. We've turned it into a spreadsheet that we use as a checklist, but really, you want to harness this power. As the title of this presentation says, you should really leverage SKF, and you can also deploy it as part of your AppSec training platform. So you can use our tool to do that. And it's great to customize it. I think that's the one thing that I'd push for, is that don't, yes, take it on and use it as is, but really try to add to it, right? So like, it may not have examples using the language you have, or it may not have specific examples that you want. Get your security team to add to it and add those examples, and then ideally contribute it back to the project. Right?
Heck yeah. If you're building a security program or doing training, what I'm trying to convey during this talk is that there's a huge opportunity to be a contributor to OWASP SKF right now, because I feel like it's at a turning point. So if you're doing a training program and you're trying to figure out how to do things, this would be a worthwhile investment of your time and efforts. So it'd be amazing to get more customized SKF code examples and checklists and knowledge-based stuff and tying it together. And I just want to reiterate what Farshad was saying, is like, don't accept results from pen testers that don't tie back to the ASVS. If you get like a bunch of results from somebody and it doesn't like kind of somehow be like, oh, this ASVS item, this, think about those results they're less valuable, because there's practitioners out there that will do that and will do a better job. So really use ASVS as your discriminator with your vendors, especially now moving forward. Like the Canadian government has already said it's a requirement for things on the internet. So just start asking people about it. I wanted to reiterate that. Yeah.
I think the one thing also, Kurt, that we didn't quite go into, because I know it's a bit of an experimental feature, is that the authenticated model, right? We have a couple of minutes. Do you think it's worthwhile showing that? Because if you do log in, because when we were showing you the demo, we did an unauthenticated login, and that under that context, you can't create projects and you can't like customize your checklist. But if you actually set up a login and log in with a user, and you can invite other users in your company as well. Then you can use the projects feature. And then what you can do is that under that project, you can, go to the checklist section. It has regular ASVS and mobile ASVS. So you can pick which one you want. And then from there, you can go and further, add specific items to your project and so on and so forth. So that's worth noting. Now, again, like it's under development, right? So here, you can see that you can have more than one user. There's the default admin user. And then when you go to the project section, you can have, you can create a project. So maybe just let's quickly show how that would work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right on, Farshad. Then there's in the version that I have here isn't actually the latest development branch, which Glenn told me the other day. There's actually development branch SSO, which has that training component in it and more polish. But effectively, now that I'm logged in as the admin, you can create other users. And in the SSO version, it's actually single sign-on. There's a bunch of code in there that ties to a couple of different single sign-on providers. So there's actually a way, there's deeper integrations coming around users, because nobody actually wants to create users inside of these things, right? You just want to tie it to your AD, or you just want to tie it to your Cognito or whatever. So that's where this is going. I feel like maybe not the next release, but ultimately, so you would create your users, and then they'd be able to log in, and then people on the internet could just show up and start using your stuff, and manage projects. So this is, I said we were going to say a little less about this because, Farshad, isn't it true that we kind of feel like a Jira integration or something?
Yeah. So, ideally, because the thing is that, as Kurt is saying, this doesn't integrate into Jira. So if you're having like a bunch of requirements here, let's not use the word Jira. Let's say your requirements tracker, your tracking system. Right? Most dev teams will have some sort of a project management tracking system. Jira is one of them, but there's lots of other ones.
Yeah, there are lots.
Where they track their user stories or what they need to build, right? The developer doesn't need yet another second place to go. So imagine if you put security requirements here, and then you have Jira with a bunch of user stories, which is the other requirements. Now they have to go to two places. So ideally, what we'd like to do is to have an integration here. So you could make a project, you could then select the specific ASVS items that apply to you within that project, and then have a way to have these exported into Jira so that you have a uniform system. But as it stands, as Kurt is showing you, you can pick the checklist type. So Kurt, just go back for a second, Kurt. Let's see the different checklist types.
Back into the project, generate requirements.
Yeah. So what are the different checklists? You can see this mobile, web, or custom, right? So if mobile is mobile ASVS, web is web ASVS. So you can make a custom one and just put whatever you want in there if you want, right? Yeah, and then let's go with web. So once you've picked that checklist, then you can see the next question that it asks you is that the category, right? So ASVS has different levels. It's like level 1, level 2, and it describes the meaning of those levels below. As I mentioned, level 3 is for applications that have lots of sensitive info, health info, large value transactions, and 1 is for any basic application, and then 2 somewhere in the middle, right? It's almost like a bell curve. I'd say 75% of applications fall under level 2. So you have some PII, maybe doing some microtransactions, or transactions are passing through you, but you're not a payment processor. So once you've selected your level, then if you go next, then you're able to pick the particular categories that you want to focus on. You may want to focus on all of them. There's 14 categories, or you may not want to focus on all of them. So you can select what you want to do with your checklist. And then so here, then you can pick, do you want this in your checklist or not? And then once you've selected this, then it goes and creates that questionnaire or the checklist for you after you've passed this step, essentially. But yeah, at this point, it doesn't have integration with Jira. So all this great work that you do here, it's almost like, needs to be tied in with whatever tracking system that you use. So at this point, it's going to make its own list, and you can add some information about what sprint you want it to be in and that kind of stuff. But that is not as useful in our opinion.
Yeah, exactly. So
because you don't want to have 2 places for your sprints.
Exactly. It'd be much better. I feel like this area could change a lot in the time to come as well. And you can see here,
but it's nice that you can export it though. So once you've made that checklist at the top, you can see there's a button. So if you did want to export this, you could, and then you could take that and try to import it. So there is still a way to do that in a sort of a more rudiment, like a more manual way, if you will.
Yeah. And for sure. That's great. Kind of get a sense of what's going on there. And then this is because we're in as admin, this is where you'd add a new checklist. Because we're in as an admin, we could add new knowledge items. I think are we getting close to time?
I think are we coming at the top of our time? I'm just going to see if there are any other questions. If you have questions, please feel free to post them. We're happy to answer the questions. And
you can reach us at these email addresses. You could probably find us on LinkedIn as well. If you want to do something with SKF, if you want to hear more about it, I'm going to be focused much more on it, I think, over these next 2 or 3 months as well. So, I mean, reach out, especially if you're using that code. If if you find, I'd love to hear from you if you're using it or if you give it a go. So
yeah, and if you really need chat and new challenges, just contact us. We'd always happy to chat and help you out.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any other questions in the chat, but I have a quick question. So you talked about tying pen test results to ASVS, but I've also seen companies do that and tie, or at least follow the WTG, the web application testing methodology.
Yeah, that's good too.
What's the difference in your view between those two approaches and how they kind of correlate?
It's a good question, Amran. So, and in fact, I've actually mapped, like in our own internal ASVS spreadsheet, we've mapped which were the WSTG items it maps to. There seems to be few items that are missing. It's not 100%. I think it's more like WSTG doesn't cover fully everything that's in ASVS. And then also WSTG is more catered towards the how someone would test it. Now, of course, so is ASVS, because it says go verify that this is this way or whatever. But WSTG is more targeted, like it goes into the details of how you actually test those things, right? So I would say, like, you would have ASVS at the top. If you had a hierarchy, ASVS would be at the top, and then it would map to some of it maps to WSTG, and then WSTG could be helpful for your testers to go and figure out how to test it. Whereas the ASVS can be like read at a high level by a developer, be turned into a requirement. There's a gap right now because it doesn't have, some of them don't quite, the wording doesn't quite translate into requirements. Like there's a few of them that says like verify you don't have XXX, but it's like, what does that mean from a, from a control perspective? So again, internally in our spreadsheet, we've written out some text in a controlled language for some of those ASVS. I think that's another thing that can be contributed back to the ASVS project, but that's how I would use it, is ASVS at the top, and you go to the left is WSTG for testers, you go to the right, and that's your definition of controls for your developers.
Yeah, I would ask too, like in that pen test that we're talking about, was the code shared with us? Because if we have the code, we're gonna be using our code perspective against ASVS much more than the web service testing guide. I thought there if we have the code. So yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Good question.
No more questions.
Whew.
Thanks, Farshad and Kurt.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Our next session starts in about 4 minutes, and that's going to be in track 1, and that's our afternoon keynote. So see you all there.
Looking forward to that. That's great. Hope everybody's there.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Great afternoon.